Welcome. We are high in the Swabian Alps, in the heart of a medieval winter.
And down there lies a village, seemingly frozen in the year 1250 AD.
But their greatest enemy isn't the brutal cold. It's a piece of parchment.
Let's get closer to understand this desperate struggle for survival.
Dawn, January 1250. The isolated duchy of Swabia. Inside a hut, the village headman Conrad inspects his dwindling supplies. He runs a finger through the grain, calculating the weeks left. His face is a mask of deep, pragmatic concern for his people. A simple wooden cross hangs beside dried herbs meant to ward off evil. In another hut, the young mother Elsbeth kneels by a dying fire. She carefully places a single small log onto the glowing embers. Her chapped hands break off splinters to make the precious fuel last longer. She glances toward her sleeping child, bundled tightly against the cold. The child's breath is a steady rhythm in the weak morning light. The huntsman Ulrich stands at the village edge, facing the silent forest. He pulls a well-worn sharpening stone from a simple leather pouch. The rhythmic scrape of steel on stone is a sharp, determined sound. Ulrich tests the keen edge of the blade with a calloused thumb. His intense brown eyes are fixed on the forbidding line of trees. The snow-laden forest is a silent, imposing presence, offering and threatening. A man carries 2 buckets of water on a yoke across the yard. Water that sloshes from the pails freezes instantly upon the ground. A woman uses a long pole to push heavy snow from her thatched roof. A blacksmith repairs a farm tool, his small forge a vital village hub. The hammers ring on hot iron sparks in the dim grey light. 2 heavily clad children chase after a lone, scrawny chicken. Elsbeth hangs a string of dried apple rings from a soot-blackened rafter. The withered slices of fruit are a promise of sweetness in a hard time. Conrad steps outside his hut, his gaze turning to the oppressive sky. The village is an island of human warmth in a vast frozen wilderness. Ulrich shoulders his axe, preparing not to hunt, but to gather firewood. His leather-bound feet crunch through the deep, crisp layer of snow. Elsbeth walks to the small animal shelter, unlatching the wooden door. Inside, a single goat looks up, its breath misting in the cold air. She strokes the animal's chin, a brief, gentle moment of connection. Conrad speaks quietly with another farmer, their expressions grim. The farmer gestures toward the communal grain storehouse. Its door is sealed with a large, heavy iron lock. The village prepares for another day of calculated, difficult survival. A lone rider, the man-at-arms Hasso, emerges from the edge of the forest. His horse's hooves punch deep holes into the otherwise pristine snow. Hasso sits tall in his saddle, his face impassive and cold. A lord's faded insignia is crudely stitched onto his woolen cloak. All activity in the village ceases as eyes turn to the stranger. Ulrich, at the forest's edge, stops his work and squints at the rider. Elsbeth, standing in her doorway, pulls her sleeping child closer. Hasso rides with purpose toward the very center of the village. He brings his horse to a halt beside the ancient linden tree. The creak of saddle leather is loud as he dismounts with efficiency. He stands alone as the villagers form a wary, silent circle around him. Hasso pulls a parchment scroll and a hammer from his saddlebag. His gloved hand unrolls the document with a sharp, deliberate snap. A large, unbroken wax seal in dark red marks it as official. He presses the parchment flat against the linden tree's rough bark. An iron nail is placed on the scroll, the hammer held ready. He drives the nail into the tree with 3 loud, authoritative strikes. The sound of the hammer echoes in the tense, dead silence. Conrad, the headman, steps forward, his face etched with grim duty. The camera follows his slow, deliberate steps toward the tree. He stands before the decree, squinting to read the formal Latin script. His pale blue eyes move quickly across the dense, inked lines. A visible slump of his shoulders reveals the terrible news he has read. He turns to face the waiting, silent villagers. Elsbeth bites her lip, her eyes wide with a fearful anticipation. Ulrich's hand grips his axe handle, his knuckles turning white. Conrad begins to translate the words of the new feudal decree. A wave of shock and disbelief ripples through the small crowd. An elderly woman makes the sign of the cross, her lips moving in a prayer. From above, the villagers seem small and helpless around the ancient tree.
For generations, this linden tree was a place of assembly, of justice. Now, this simple iron nail represents a new kind of law, remote and brutal.
The village's shared resilience has just fractured into individual fear. What do we do now? We must leave! A lord's reeve could enforce such a brutal decree with lethal force.
Ulrich takes a single, defiant step toward the man-at-arms Hasso. His face is a mask of pure, unadulterated rage. Hasso remains unmoved, his hand resting lightly on his sword's hilt. The village holds its breath in a moment of sharp, violent tension. Conrad places a firm, restraining hand on Ulrich's arm. His gnarled thumb presses hard, a silent command to stop. Ulrich hesitates, then takes a slow, reluctant step backward. Conrad turns away, walking with purpose toward his own small hut. The camera follows him as he enters the dark, smoky interior. He goes to a large, locked wooden chest in the corner of the room. He kneels and pulls a heavy iron key from a pouch on his belt. The rusted key grates as it turns in the heavy lock mechanism. Conrad uses both hands to lift the creaking, heavy lid of the chest. Inside are carefully kept items wrapped in protective linen cloths. He carefully lifts out an old, yellowed and tattered parchment scroll. The document is held together by a single worn leather tie. Its wax seal is ancient, crumbled and broken long ago. Conrad stands, holding the old document with a kind of reverence. He walks out of the hut, returning to the linden tree. All eyes turn to Conrad and the fragile scroll in his hands. Conrad faces Hasso directly, holding up the village charter. He carefully unrolls the delicate, brittle parchment for the soldier to see. He presents the old charter, a document of established legal right. Hasso's face is a study in confusion. He cannot read the script. He glances from the old charter to the new decree on the tree. He recognizes the authority of an older seal, if not the words. Hasso is trapped, caught between two conflicting feudal commands. He looks at Conrad, then at the silent, watching villagers. A single bead of sweat rolls down the soldier's temple. He makes a decision, his expression one of pure frustration. Hasso turns abruptly back toward the linden tree. His gloved hand rips the new decree from its nail on the bark. He crumples the fresh parchment into a ball in his fist. The now ruined document is thrown down into the snow. Hasso walks quickly and wordlessly toward his waiting horse. He swings himself into the saddle with a single fluid motion. He pulls hard on the reins, turning the horse around. He spurs his mount into a gallop, fleeing the village. His figure quickly disappears back into the silent, imposing forest. The small iron nail remains embedded in the linden tree's bark. The villagers stand in silence for a moment, then a collective sigh. Ulrich walks to Conrad's side, placing a hand on his shoulder. Conrad gives a slow nod, his face weary but resolute. Elsbeth manages a small smile through tears, clutching her child. Her hand closes tightly around the small wooden bird at her neck. A short time later, Ulrich gathers a small group of village men. They walk toward the forest's edge, carrying axes and rope. Ulrich leads the way, stepping across the threshold into the woods. They do not chop living trees, but begin gathering fallen branches. A man hefts a large, snow-covered bough onto his shoulder. Another uses his axe to break dead limbs from a fallen tree. The group works in silence with a quiet and efficient purpose. They carry heavy bundles of wood on their backs toward the village. A new, neat stack of firewood grows beside one of the huts. Inside Elsbeth's home, a healthy fire now burns brightly and warm. She sits beside the hearth, quietly knitting a small woolen sock. Her child plays on the floor with a simple carved wooden toy. Elsbeth watches the flames, her expression one of profound relief. Inside Conrad's hut, he too sits by his newly revived fire. He is carefully wiping the old charter clean with a piece of cloth. His old fingers trace the precious lines of ink on the parchment. Conrad slowly and carefully begins to roll the charter back up. He secures the document with a fresh piece of leather cord. He places the scroll safely back inside the heavy wooden chest. Conrad closes the lid and fastens the old iron lock. He returns to his stool, taking his seat again by the hearth. He stares into the flames, his mind churning with thoughts. His expression is not of triumph, but of grim understanding.
I'm back inside, where the fire now burns with a comforting warmth. That flame represents more than heat. It's security. It's the future. Survival was not about brute strength, but memory and a written promise. A fragile promise they knew they would have to defend again and again.